3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, folks.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our Sunday question and answer, where we take your comments and we answer them here. It's a rainy Friday.
Liquid sunshine. Get excited.
Liquid sunshine?
Yeah.
What was that?
You don't know what that is?
Literally, I've never heard of that in my life.
Come on. It's liquid sunshine. I've said it so many
This
times.
doesn't look like any type of sunshine.
You choose not to pay attention.
You say so many things
that you don't pay attention to.
But thank you guys for joining us. If leave your comments below this video if you'd like to be featured in our video. It just makes it a little easier for me to find these comments. But yeah, let's start it off here with Mark Darling 4487, and we got some long comments here.
Let's go, Mark.
But
what do you got?
Mark says, "Hey Santos,
Santos.
Yeah.
Mark, you're not starting off on a good foot here.
I really like your content, so thank you. Having said that, gosh, I'm so sick of hearing about this story. Poor sellers making stupid financial decisions that have put them into ruin. Well, from all of us who didn't do that, too bad, silly sellers. You made a huge financial mistake. You fell for the FOMO. Now it's time to suck it up. And if you're going to be paying for this mistake for years to come, too bad. Suck it up and be an adult, and next time educate yourself, period. No one feels sorry for you. No one put a gun to your head to buy way more than you could afford. Now, can we move on to some awesome stories about buyers who are bagging some awesome real estate deals out there?"
Marks. It's really easy just to paint everybody with the same brush. Does that expression make sense? Paint everybody with the same brush.
Heard that one.
And yeah, there are some sellers that are in trouble now, and they were just plain straight out greedy. They way overextended themselves. Instead of buying one house, they bought 3, 4. And yeah, nobody feels sorry for those people. But in that same conversation, there are sellers that bought because it made sense to them at the time, and they did do all their homework, and it just made sense. And they couldn't have predicted that prices were going down. Nobody was predicting that. And then interest rate changes, and TIF said they're not going to change, and then they changed, and nobody predicted that, and so they got hurt there. And then one of the husband or the wife lost their job because of layoffs and tariffs putting pressure on our economy. And some sellers, basically, through no fault of their own, got caught. And if maybe one of them didn't lose their job, maybe they'd not be selling and still be paying. But what I'm getting at is some kind of got caught up on it through their own, we'll say, bad judgment, and others are in trouble through no fault of their own. These things happen. Everybody could be the smartest person in the world. There's still going to be people where things change in their life and they can't afford what they just purchased. So yeah, I get what you're saying, but not everybody's in the same boat. Some people just genuinely bought one house and circumstances have changed.
I'll also add to that. There's also the subsection of people that bought back in those peak FOMO days we're talking about that are doing just fine because they could afford it. And did they pay too much for their house in comparison to what it is now? Yes, but they're doing just fine. And I feel a little bit guilty here, Bob.
Why is that? Why are you so guilty?
So Mark here, and there's a lot of people in the comments that are bashing these sellers. Oh, we don't feel bad for you. We don't feel bad for you.
We're not even asking you to feel bad.
I don't. Yeah, but this is the thing. I don't think a lot of those sellers are asking for anyone's sympathy. It's really our videos that are exposing what's happening, and so like we're the ones putting out these situations, and people take that as people start bashing the sellers when the sellers aren't the ones necessarily complaining. Obviously, they're not happy about the situation, but they're not the ones out here on the internet complaining. It's us that are telling you guys about these situations. You know what I mean?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
But yeah, so it's not, there's a lot of sellers that we speak to that are in these situations that are not complaining. They understand what's happening. They understand they made a big mistake, and, you know, they're owning up to it. So it's not them that's complaining, but, you know, our goal, our mission for these videos, is to try and give you an idea of what's happening, right? It's
Boots on the ground.
That's exactly it. Cause, you know, there are a lot of people that make videos on, you know, what's going on with the economy as a whole, what's going on. Like there's just so many videos about, you know, real estate in general. But what we try to do is we try and make it more specific to the areas that we're discussing, more specific to the times that are happening, like the things that are happening right now. Like we talk about this all the time. You know, you hear the numbers for Canadian real estate, and there's a lot of different parts of Canadian real estate, but we're trying to give you specific to Toronto, York region, parts of Durham region. And so we're just letting you know what's happening, what we're seeing. And, you know, when the market was going up, was going crazy, we were telling you that. We were telling you the situations we were seeing there. Now that the market's turned, we're telling you the situations here. That's our goal. It's never to try and make anyone feel bad. Also, what has ended up becoming a big part of our channel too is saying these things because it does help other sellers that are potentially in this situation. You know, a lot of them have
or
called,
buyers.
buyer
story.
Or a lot of them have called and said how, you know, the fact that they know that they're not alone through this kind of makes it easier for them to deal with. So that's why we do this. And so let's just try not to talk about anyone. You know, everyone made the mistakes. No one's asking for sympathy. And I think that's it. I think that covers it, right? Was that too long-winded? Did I talk too much there?
I think so. You had a lot to say there. How long have you been planning this speech of yours?
Sorry. Well, once I picked out the question, I had a bunch of
writers.
I had a bunch of ideas of what I wanted to say.
Your speech writers all got together and
picked out the question
and pulled an all-nighter for that one.
Honestly, sorry if I've taken up too much time answering this question, but let's move on to the next one.
We're almost at our destination.
I know. The next question here comes from Katsavidis, and they say, Santo, I'm curious, if you were the seller's agent in this case, what advice would you give to them? I don't think there's much you can do, really. That neighbor is sabotaging your sale, though. I guess I should
say this. Well, you can. I was about to, but go ahead.
So this is with regards to our video where we were talking about, you know, sometimes when you go to a showing, there's some red flags and it's a crazy neighbor. And that's something that you should take into account when you're buying, because it's not just about the house you're buying. It's about, you know, what's around the house too, because you're dealing with those people every day.
Okay. So, but the question is about the seller side, and we've had that situation before where a client calls us saying, hey, listen, I need to sell. And when we get in a conversation, they're selling because the neighbor is just making their life miserable. And there's nothing more they can do about it. And their only option they feel now is to sell. And we've done that. And one of the last times that we've sold a home like that, the day after I put up the for sale sign, that crazy neighbor called me. My number's right on the for sale sign.
Yeah, that's right.
Called me and immediately was aggressive with me. Now, this neighbor doesn't know me from nothing, but immediately just started on the phone, really aggressive with me about, you know, these people if people come for showings, they better not block his driveway in every way, and they better not, when they walk between the houses, walk on. And so we had a conversation. I'm not going to get into everything I said. This is still a family-orientated show, but we cleared it up. And never heard from him again. Never heard from him again. I'm not going to say or not say that my Sicilian background came into the picture a little bit there, but cleared it up. Never heard from him again. Property got sold. My clients moved on.
Yeah.
They're happy.
And you know what? That was sometimes when we do videos, we think about, like who is this message for and stuff like that. And that was one of the videos where when we were talking about the concept, I think people underestimate how important that message is, because our clients in that case, where we were on the seller side, they were making a lateral move. Like, this move was going to cost, like, this neighbor costed them like over 6 figures to do this. Right. But they felt they had no other choice.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
yeah, they're at their wits' end.
Yeah. And
at their wits' end. And I tried to come up with another solution.
Yeah.
And we tried to, no, cops have been called. No, this, that, the other thing. We got no choice. We got to move. We're uncomfortable in our own house.
Yeah. And especially with the kids, it just made it very difficult. And so it's like, I think it's something that's very, very understated, because, you go to see a house, you love the exterior, you love the interior, but like, the person that you're living beside, especially if those walls are connected, but the person that you're living beside, like, that's a pretty serious consideration to make. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And so, yeah. Next comment here is also about that. So Impactfully 5714 says, wow, what an experience. Do you think the neighbor is behaving like that on purpose, maybe to buy this house himself if the price goes down? Or did the seller have past issues with this neighbor? That is so sad.
The second, the seller has had past issues. This is not a one weekend disagreement thing.
Yeah.
This is a constant problem that in many cases gone on for several years, for where the seller just can't take, one of the neighbors can't take it anymore. It's usually the less aggressive one. The more aggressive one, the bully, is the one that kind of forces the other one that has no choice but to sell at the end. But to the notion that the seller is being a bull, the neighbors being a bully because they want to buy the home at a discount. No, we've not seen that. And buying that home at a discount brings down values for the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
And remember, they're a homeowner there. Why would they want their values to go down? I don't see it. Could it happen? Sure, but I don't see it. I've not experienced that.
Yeah. And okay, so next question here comes from the Unmanifest, and they say, isn't everyone better off theoretically selling ASAP if they can, if the market is correcting and dropping?
Well, no. Most people generally do not want to sell. I know the question is, wouldn't everybody be better off? If you sell, then what are you going to do? You need a place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Many of these people, rent and mortgage is going to be pretty similar. And then with the rent, less stability. There's all sorts of reasons why you should do one or you should do the other. But to sell just because the market is trending down is not on its own a good reason to sell. It costs money to sell, and then you got to live somewhere. And at some point, the market's going to start going the other way. Well, what are you going to do then?
Yeah.
So most people that are selling, not the ones that are choosing to because they're making a strategic move. For example, their family dynamics have changed. They need a bigger home and they're moving up. So they no matter what the market was doing, they'd be doing this anyways at this time of their life. Those people are always going to be there no matter what the market is. The people that are choosing because of financial pressures, that's the last thing on their mind selling.
Yeah.
They're doing it because there's no other choice. They'd prefer to keep their home.
Yeah. Okay, next comment here comes from Eshkin Kott. And Eshkin says, how come they are unable to close? So this was with regards to the video we were talking about where we're finding
sellers below water.
Sellers underwater. And
below water. That would be in the dirt.
Yeah. So sellers
underwater.
owe more. They owe more on their mortgage than their house is able to sell for them, and leading them to not be able to close. So Eshkin says here, How come they are unable to close? When they bought the house, they paid already a deposit of 10 to 15%. During 4 to 5 years they lived in the house, they also paid a tangible portion of the mortgage. House prices didn't go down more than 10 to 15%. If they sell the house now, they will lose the deposit, but will be able to return the remaining portion of the mortgage to the bank. Santo, can you clarify that? You were talking about that situation a lot.
Yeah, because the ones that can sell and cover their mortgage because of how much equity they have, that doesn't come up in our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That sale went the way it should.
Yeah. Which, I think that's most of the sales that are happening, right?
Most of the sales.
Yeah.
But it's those others that can't afford to sell because they're underwater. And that's the situation there. They're just, the points you point out, like they paid 10, 15%. Some of them paid 20, 30%.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've been paying their mortgage off for the last 3, 4, 5 years, when you really look at it, they've paid minimal. Yeah. Most of that payment is all interest. Like there's very little principal being paid in 4 or 5 years. And then you say that property values haven't gone down that much. Some areas, 15%, 20%. There's other areas that have gone down 30 and 35%. It depends on the neighborhood you're talking about. It all depends. And some of these people, even with their down payment, then incurred other debt for other things that they did. I'm not saying it was smart moves, but these things happen and now they're stuck. So the individual situation will determine if what you're saying makes sense. Because the way you've said it in your comment, how come they're underwater? Mm-hmm. But your comment is not true of every situation.
Yeah. And if we look at what homes were sold,
lots of areas that have gone down from peak 30 to 35%.
I'm thinking just off the top of my head. I've mentioned here how one of my favorite areas is the Hill and Rutherford area. And, peak pricing there, you were looking at like 1.8, 1.9. There were some people that spent $2 million on
35-year-old home.
Yeah. Like less than 3,000 square feet. Spent $2 million there. Mm-hmm. And now if you look at that some of those same pockets, those same homes that people spent 1.8, 1.9, 2 million are 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, like really pushing at 1.5.
Yeah.
And so you can see just in a situation like that, your down payment, if you did put 20% down, pretty well wiped out.
Right? And there's lots of people with a $1 million, $1.2 million mortgage.
Which is crazy to think about.
But there's lots. It's not $200,000-$300,000 mortgage anymore.
Yeah. So, okay. Next comment here comes from Pay the Piper. All of those potential buyers during the FOMO market frenzy a number of years ago that submitted offers but were unsuccessful unknowingly dodged the biggest bullet that is now bankrupting or financially devastating many.
So true.
Yeah. It's funny.
A lot of them dodged the bullet, and hindsight is 20/20, but at the time they were probably pretty upset that they weren't winning the bidding wars.
I remember how frustrating that time was to be on the buyer side, because it was just you just had no chance. You really had, honestly, if you were doing everything by the book, you really had no chance.
Yeah.
Right. And it was it's so discouraging for buyers. It was so discouraging for buyers because you see a house that's sold for, let's say, 1.6 million, right? And then 2 weeks later, another house comes up that's let's say the exact same type of subdivision home, right? And you're thinking, okay, you know what? 1.6 million. Now that I know that was the price that it sold for, that's the price I can go to. So I will be close to my max, but that's the price I can go to. And then someone goes and buys that for 1.7.
It drives you insane.
And it's just like, it was so what's the word? Disheartening for buyers at that time. And we actually did.
There's many. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say
this guy likes to talk today. Holy moly!
First, you don't want me to talk. Now I'm talking too much. But we did a video not too long ago, maybe about a month ago, about probably one of our luckiest clients. If you guys watched it, you'll remember it was probably the luckiest client because he was looking for a house at that time, and then all of a sudden his work situation changed,
transferred overseas.
Yeah, he left.
So he sold at the peak.
Yeah, he sold at the peak.
It wasn't planned, but
he left.
That's the timing.
And then he's back. And now the house that he wants to buy, they're buying it for so much less that he could actually buy a condo too. So there's a happy story of someone who dodged the bullet.
Before you go on to the next comment, what I wanted to say is a lot of those people that dodge the bullet, again, hindsight's 2020, but there's all sorts of other situations in our lives where something didn't happen the way we wanted it to. And then later, it's like, you know what? I'm so lucky it didn't go the way I was hoping it would go. It's actually so much better for me that it happened this way.
Yeah.
So that's pretty common. But I can tell you, there's so many of those people that didn't buy then, that tried, that are going to tell you how smart they were.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we didn't buy at the peak. Yeah. But you wanted to really bad, and you tried. The market didn't allow you to buy.
That's right.
But you act like you're so smart, which is also human nature, because there's so many people today that bought, a home they've got a ton of equity, and they actually act like they're savvy investors, but they own the one home that's paid off that they bought 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's I got so much equity. What did you do? You bought a home 40 years ago and you paid your rent, your mortgage every month.
Yeah.
And you did nothing else. And you're
financial genius.
Your $200,000 purchase is now $2 million. But it's funny. It's just the way, human nature is.
Yeah. Okay. So next comment here comes from Deezed150. And Deez says, just a thought. With respect to the vendor who cannot sell below a certain dollar amount, the way I see it is if your best offer is below his required amount needed, he should take that offer to the creditor who is exposed and explain the situation, as some creditors would have the foresight or skills to see taking less than the 100% owed is a far better outcome financially than going through the legal route in a declining market and a greatly extended legal timeline.
I see what you're suggesting. I don't right now, currently in this market, I don't think we have the masses yet for most creditors to go, sure, I'll take less. No problem. You're off the hook. I can see some of them maybe saying, okay, but we're giving you a loan for the balance. I can see that. Maybe. I've not personally seen that.
Well, I think with the institutional lenders, that would be tough. But I think maybe on the private side, you think a deal like that might be able to be made?
They want to secure it to something.
Yeah.
And if you have something and you say, I'll pay over the next 10 years, the $200,000 that I'm short.
Yeah.
Well, we want to secure it against something. Yeah, sure. Secure it against, I have another property. It's like, wait a minute. They would rather just straight out sue you and get you to sell that other property.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't see that there's enough pressure on the lenders yet to really, truly be open-minded to something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is worth a conversation if you're in this situation.
Yeah.
It's an option that may be available to you. I just think it's more unlikely.
Worst they can say is no, right?
Whatever's happening right now with, as far as mortgage defaults go, and the big lenders, the big 5 banks, it's absolutely nothing. Like it's peanuts compared to the kind of money that these people, these institutions, it's insignificant right now, the amount of defaults to cause them to change the way they do things.
Yeah, we were talking about with Anthony about that last week on this same video, and he was saying that it's a lot of what he's seeing on his end is on the private side. They're seeing a lot of things start to get a lot of people get stuck, but on the institutional side, it's there's not too much happening from what he's seeing. So
you're nothing.
Yeah.
On the private lenders,
that sounds so rude.
No, but it's true. you mean absolutely nothing to the big five lenders.
You do mean something to someone. So
your mother loves you.
Rude.
The private lenders.
The private lenders don't love you.
That amount that you might be defaulting in, they feel it a bit more. They might be more open-minded, maybe, but they also can be more heartless.
Yeah.
So, try.
So, okay. Next comment here comes from Slavalovstov. And they say, what is going to happen if no more new pre-con for few years? Just wondering.
Well, we already know the amount of pre-construction condos specifically, it's way down. The amount of new starts and new projects is practically nil, but it's like way down compared to what it was before. And there will be in the near future, a period of time where there's going to be very few actually being completed, just because there's very few that started today so we know that. What's going to happen? We can speculate. We could say, hey, there may be a shortage, but we don't know what the economy is going to be like. We don't know how supply and demand work. If we assume that the economy and market, everything's going to be booming and tons of people want to buy condos and we don't have them, well, we're going to have a supply and demand issue. Or the opposite could be true, that no matter how low the supply is, the demand is going to be so low still, it won't matter. It's tough to say. It's really tough to say.
Okay, so next comment here comes from, how do I pronounce this? Dinez Bastos. Dinez Bastos. And he says, so this was with regards to our video where we were talking about the renting back a unit from so if you're a buyer, you buy a home, but you rent the home back to the seller.
Oh, so the seller wants to stay beyond closing.
Exactly.
And they'll pay the new homeowner, go, in a sense, pay them rent.
Yes. So Dinez Bastos says, but wouldn't it be short-term rental like Airbnb? Wouldn't that be different rules, not the same tenant ones, no?
No. If a seller stays there for any amount of time, they don't have to stay for a year to be considered a tenant. Like, you could rent your home and be under landlord and tenant board rules, renting for a week.
Yeah.
So it's not the amount of time that determines whether they're landlord and tenant relationship. But when you throw in Airbnb, if you could do it under Airbnb, you would be better off as the new owner, because the landlord and tenant board rules won't apply to you. More hotel type rules will apply to you. However,
continue.
However, you first got to see if you could even do it under Airbnb rules, because a lot of jurisdictions, you can't anymore. Those rules have changed. For example, in Toronto, to rent out Airbnb, first of all, you got to register, and then it's only your principal resident, and it's a room in your principal resident, and you kind of need to be living in your principal resident. And that won't work in this scenario where you're buying a house and the seller needs to stay there a couple more months after closing. It just won't work because you're not living in the home.
So back when I was working at the real estate office, the law office, we had a situation like this come up where basically the seller wanted to stay in the home, and I don't remember it exactly, how it went, but I think one of the things that basically put this agreement of the seller renting back from the buyer, one of the things that put that into the landlord tenant board rules was the fact that it was considered still the primary residence for the seller, for that person, right? So you go to a hotel, you have a primary residence, but you're just using that for like small, like a whatever. It could be a long stay, right? But it's known that it's not your primary residence. Your hotel is not your primary residence. But I remember when we were discussing this, and this was years ago. So if you know better about this, please leave it in the comments. But I remember that being one of the factors as to why this would be considered a landlord-tenant relationship, was because that seller would be that was his primary residence stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think there was a couple other
utilities are in the seller's name.
There was a couple other
in Airbnb, you're not changing over utilities. You're not.
Yeah. And it's not being marketed to anyone else too.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
And so there was a couple things like that basically put this under the rules of landlord tenant board. If you know more about that, let us know in the comments, because I'm curious. I'm curious what other information there is out there. But so next comment here comes from J13215TOR, and this is with regards to the same thing, basically renting back from the seller, from renting back from the buyer. From the buyer, sorry.
The buyer becomes a new owner.
They say, what are the possible advantages for the buyer? I can't think of any myself unless the seller is giving me some sort of discount on the purchase to allow them to live in the home.
Every individual situation is slightly different. The advantages definitely, in most cases, lean more towards the seller. This benefits the seller. And some sellers that can't find buyers prepared to accommodate this can give an incentive to the buyer on price. So yes, sometimes there's a discount on price to allow the seller to stay longer. Some of the buyers, though, are very flexible on closing. And if it's a popular residence and all the buyers want it like now and need to move in, and then there's this one buyer that says, I don't need to move in, then it could be beneficial that way. I've had situations also where I've worked with buyers that have told me, listen, I need to buy by a certain time or I'm switching jobs. And even though the new job, I'm going to be making more money, the mortgage situation, they're not going to look at the new job with me having any history there, or I'm going to be setting up my own business and then I got to wait 2 years before I buy. There's all sorts of situations where buyers also kind of want to close right away. And if the seller's like, I can't close in a month, then the buyer may close and still allow the seller to stay. So there's a lot of individual situations there that it can be a benefit for the buyer to close. It is very tricky, though. It is. I don't recommend closing and allowing the seller to stay. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
But there can be some benefits in some situations for the buyer.
Okay, so next comment here comes from Carrie, the nurse practitioner. And Carrie says, appreciate the honesty and transparency. Santo and Sessa team for Rico presidents.
Rico, no.
We got
my outside voice.
We got a bone to pick with Rico, man.
Rico.
We got a bone to pick with Rico. Those guys, like, we're not even going to
careful what you say. They'll come after us.
I know.
Careful what you say.
We love Rico.
We love Rico. We love Rico.
We love Rico and everything they do. So, no.
They're doing a bang up job.
Yeah. So, okay, next comment. I don't know why I put that one in. I was just so upset with them.
You were setting me up.
Okay, so next comment and last comment here comes from Rosie Loves Learning 313.
Okay,
she
Rosie.
Says, you're so kind-hearted, Santo. Thank you for your work.
Rosie, it is my pleasure. You are awesome, and we really appreciate all of you taking the time to listen to us. But I got to tell you something, Rosie. My son Daniel, he's all right too.
Yes, I like to think so. Thank you guys so much for watching. That ends our video for this week. Leave your comments in this video at the bottom of this video, and you can be featured in next week's show. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Have an awesome day.
Have a great weekend, everybody.